What's up, everyone? I'm CL Connolly, and today is the third video in my five-part series, and we'll be talking about Family Affair. This book was published last August, so August 2019 is when this one was published. Yes, there's a huge gap between my publishing. There is a video down below that you can watch that shows what the gap in my publishing actually was. So you'll understand exactly what happened. Now, this is going to be a long video because I will tell you sort of that gap and exactly what really went down in the whole time that was going on with, between writing Friendly Misfortunes and Family Affair. And so I've got Forbidden Affair done, published, went to a book club meeting and got some notes from that. I wrote Friendly Misfortunes, got that one published. I started writing Family Affair, and Family Affair basically focuses on the main character's family, of course. So Mackenzie Lee's abandoned by her mother, and the book club members, they wanted to know more about her mother. Okay, they wanted to know more about Mackenzie's mother from Forbidden Affair, and that's basically what they were asking. They wanted to know, who is this woman, and why would she abandon her child? So they want to get more of the backstory on Mackenzie's mother, because that was kind of the catalyst for what happened with Mackenzie in Forbidden Affair, right? So I was outlining Family Affair as I was writing Friendly Misfortune, so I was kind of doing them both, but, there's sort of a gap because Friendly Misfortunes didn't take very long to actually write and do the editing and, get all that done. And, of course, there is 2 years between publishing Forbidden Affair and Friendly Misfortunes. So I thought I was going to have to create characters to include in her family. Now, of course, I had to create her mother because I didn't exactly have a character for her mother in Forbidden Affair. So while I was writing this book, the characters kind of evolved and they became a little bit more known. Let me put it that way. So the characters were basically telling me who they were as I was writing the book, which is always the best way to go about it. If the character's going to tell me who they are, perfect. That helps me get through that. Well, okay. While I was writing the book, when the characters were telling me who they were, I all of a sudden was shocked when my story went from here and moved to here, and it just went and veered off into a whole new dimension. And I was just as shocked as, the readers were when they found out, the difference, who her family really was. So Forbidden Affair was published in 2012, Friendly Misfortunes in 2014, and I wanted to publish Family Affair in 2016. But life sort of got away from me. Okay? I got a promotion, which, that happened back in 2013. Okay, 2013, I was promoted. Got to the point where I tried still continuing to write. I really did. And I thought, this was just going to end up being a hobby. I wasn't really going to get my writing career off the ground. I was just going to have a few books here and there every so often. And, that's how it was going to go. And it was only because I worked in the restaurant industry to make sure that I could still write. I wanted to have a schedule that was a little bit more flexible so I could write, work, no big deal. And I did the same thing when I went into retail, and it was only because retail paid more than the restaurant industry. So I go into retail, 2011, I get Forbidden Affair published in 2012. Amazing, right? And then I get Friendly Misfortunes published in 2014, but that's because, in 2013 when I was promoted, I still kind of had, because I was only promoted to like a department supervisor. It wasn't management. It was just a supervisor. And which was fine. So I still kind of had uh, that flexible schedule, so I could still write and do my job, and I'm still getting paid and everything else, right? Well, by 2016, I was now promoted from the supervisor into a management position. Well, this was done. I had already written it, right? And I was going through the edits, but in the process of being shifted from store to store to store, because every time you get like a specific promotion or something, you shift to another store, which it's a little irritating, but you kind of have to go where the jobs are, right? The thing is that with my promotion into management from supervisor, I ended up going a little bit further. So, of course, my drive or the commute to work was a little bit further. Okay, no big deal. So, my edits were taking a little longer than necessary. I had given it to the beta readers, and it was starting to come back, but because of the fact that I wasn't in that mindset of, okay, what are you thinking? Is it coming back to me? Am I getting it? Like I did with the other books, to get them to get it back to me. It basically kind of ended up turning into this where I wasn't really contacting them as often because I was trying to do my job. And I felt like this was just going to take a side note, no big deal. I was getting stuff back, but it was getting pushed to the side, and I wasn't really using the edits that I was getting from my beta readers because I wasn't really paying attention to it. Of course, at the time, I'm only focusing on one book at a time. I'm not writing multiples like I am now. So I felt like this was probably the worst book I had ever written. And it was because my first round of edits took me so long, because I wrote it in 2014, right after Friendly Misfortunes was published. I started writing it in 2014, and I had finished it, and I was editing it. So throughout the rest of 2014, I was editing it. Most of 2015, I was editing it, so I was constantly going over and over and over and over it, and I was like, this is crap. Why do I keep doing this to myself? So I gave it to my beta readers, and I was like, I need somebody else to look at this, because I'm going to get to the point to where I'm like, yeah, there's not going to be a sequel, and I'm just going to stop writing. And literally, that's because of the stress of becoming management. Now, of course, at this retail job, I was never actually trained. I was literally told, figure it out. I have no idea what I'm doing. I literally don't. So I'm having to figure out every aspect of the job. Yes, cashier, easy. But once you get into the copy center, figure it out. Cool, because I'm old and I don't know how to use this. Not necessarily old. Like, I knew how to use Microsoft Office. That was about it. I didn't know how to use Photoshop and stuff, so I had to figure out how to use Photoshop. And literally every aspect of this job, I had to figure it out on my own. So when I became supervisor, I had to figure it out on my own. And it was so difficult for me, being the person that I was like, I'm just this lowly person down here. I just come in, do my job, and go home. And now I'm having to tell other people what to do, which these people are not liking, especially when you go to another store. They don't like the fact that I'm telling them what to do. Say they've been at the job longer than I have. Well, apparently you're really crappy at your job if you haven't been promoted, and I was able to, get promoted as fast as I possibly could, but that was because of the fact that I would figure it out and do the best I could at the job. And that was mainly due to the fact that, that's just how I am. I literally want to know every aspect of my job. So, of course, when it comes to writing, I have a lot of reference books so I can be the best that I can be to give to my readers. I want my readers to read the best that I can give them. Now, granted, there are times where I sit there and I go, this is shit. And then I give it to my beta readers and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. But I just need a little bit more information here, right? When I get it to my editor by the end, then she's like, okay, it's great, but there are just a few things here. Now, I love the fact that she does that, where it's like, okay, look, there's a little bit of things here. Cool, okay. So when my readers come back and give me feedback and they're all like, this is great, and of course now that, it has been several years, I know that reviews on my book, some people are going to like it, some people aren't. I don't care. Whatever. Anyway, so I'm in the process of trying to figure out my new job, management. I don't know how to do any of this. I had at the store that I was at before I got management, when I was still just a supervisor, they had an issue with one of their managers, so they pulled me out of the copy center and actually started showing me, little things that, the management does. Cool. Okay. Best store I'd ever been to. The store manager there was amazing, and his store ran like a well-oiled machine, and that's just because he was the best at everything. He wasn't always, just here, do this, do this, do this, do this. He was always, he'd sit down with you and go, okay, this is what needs to be done. And let's see if we can, and he'd always just give you one thing at a time and not just throw, a list of shit at you, so that by the time you're at the end of your shift, you're sitting there going, oh, great, I only got 3 things done. Cool. He would literally give you things to do in a list, one thing at a time. Once that thing was finished, here you go. Here's the next thing to do, right? And then when the next manager comes in, he's divvying out the responsibility among all of his managers and not just telling one, here, and then the rest of them just get to stand around. So that was the best store I'd ever been to, but then I had to be transferred out when I actually got management, and I went to the smaller store, which inevitably turned into my, the death of my career and in retail, because I would never go back. Anyway, the first manager at this store was great. So through 2015, it was okay. I was still writing. I was still trying to get this finished. I wasn't writing anything new because I was still in that mindset that I needed to do one at a time because I had that job, right? In 2016, we got a new store manager. He was literally way too much for me. So all of 2016, I never touched that. It never got touched. Not again. So like I said, I wasn't really communicating with the beta readers. I was just coming home stressed out, was like, this is too much for me. I would try, I would pull out my notebooks and stuff and start writing things. And literally, I think I started 6 different books in my notebooks, handwriting, because that's how everything was done before. I had them all. And I think about 6 of them had some, I had a couple of them where I had started some books, but I never took I took the notebook with me to work, but I didn't want to work on them while I was there on my lunch break, like I used to. I used to go out for my lunch break. I would sit out there with my notebook and I'd just write. And it was amazing. I stopped doing that. I lost my passion for writing because of this one manager. I was literally so stressed out with him because he would give me everything to do and tell me it was my job to do it. And it wasn't until literally 9, 10 months later that I realized that half of what he was giving me was his job. And it was only because another manager told me that that's not my job. And every single time I would take a week off from work because, vacation, I would come back to everybody going, please God, don't take time off ever again. He is so unbearable. And I'm like, you guys have no idea how many times I get up in the morning and don't want to go to work because of this guy. I literally didn't. He was verbally abusive. And if you didn't do what he wanted you to do in the time frame that he wanted you to do it in, you were literally the biggest piece of garbage that he had ever seen. And he would tell you. Now, because I wanted to keep my job, because I needed the money, I would legitimately just nod, say, okay, fine, whatever, and let it go. Now, if there was somebody else in the room and we were in the office, I'm going to pop off on him because, it's funnier to make fun of somebody when there's somebody else in the room than there is when you're alone because there isn't anybody else there to hear it. But let me tell you, I completely stopped writing. I legitimately would just come home, go for a run. And that was, at the time, it was literally the only thing I could do to not strangle him while I was at work. Running was the only way to relax. But then by then, I'd get home, I'd shower, I'd take care of my family, and then I just want to go to bed. So there was no more writing. And even if I worked a closing shift, I would run in the mornings. I would relax until I absolutely had to get up and go to work. And then that's what I would do. I wouldn't touch it. I wasn't writing. I wasn't doing anything. I mean, at some point, I actually stopped taking my notebooks with me to work. I was so stressed out. I never missed a day of work because anytime I missed a day of work, he would take out that verbal abuse that he was putting on me, he would take it out on somebody else. So I did what I could to soften the blow because everybody else kept going, he's really not that bad. And I'm like, you don't understand. Legitimately, he's doing it to me. And I am literally attempting to do what I can so that he doesn't take it out on you. When I go on vacation, then they realize exactly what's going on. And they're like, you can't do that again. And I'm like, no kidding. I said, now you know exactly what I go through every single day that he's here. I had to gather myself every day. I would go to work and I'd be there early, sometimes 45 minutes early, just so I could sit in my car before I went inside and put myself together just to go in. It was so bad. So eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I could not do it anymore. It was done. I wanted to transfer. I wanted to get out. I couldn't do it. No. I could not take his shit anymore, and I wanted out. I asked for a transfer. And I literally left him a note right before I left for a week's of vacation so he could think about it, and he could figure out how to get me that transfer. I blocked him on my phone. I blocked the store from my phone. I told certain employees that they could call me, but that was it. Everything else was blocked, and I wasn't going to answer the phone while I was on my vacation because I could not stand listening to his voice. So I went on my vacation. I came back, and he had talked to the district manager. This district manager literally was looking to put me in an assistant manager position. But because now I couldn't do it at that store, and I didn't want to, I was not going to get that. I was going to go to this other stores that were having issues, and that's exactly what he decided to do. So I spent an entire year bouncing around from store to store to store to store to store. That was all of 2016, the year that I wanted to have Family Affair published. So I went from one store to the next. There were weeks that I was actually I was going to multiple stores in the exact same week. I'd go to this store and then, for one day, and then I'd go to that store for one day, and then I'd go to that store for one day, and then I'd go back to this store for a day. And as long as I had 5 days, and I'm just literally just going to these stores to fill in holes. And of course, I'm back behind the copy center because they find out that that's what I can do. And they're so excited that they got somebody that actually knows what they're doing and can work, rather than just going through and going, yeah, we don't do that, because I don't feel like it. So the thing is that most of these stores were having employees that wanted to send everything out to the outsourced company rather than actually doing it in-house when it was, I'll have it done for you in 2 hours. That's why, because it would take a total of 2 hours and they didn't want to do it. Anyway, so I bounced around from store to store to store. I stopped writing. I was stressed. My drive, I'm terrified to drive as it is. So my drive to all these other stores were going further and further and further into the big city. And going further into Houston terrifies me. And it has absolutely nothing to do with Houston in its own. It has something to do with the fact that there's so many people in Houston. The traffic is actually a lot thicker, and I don't like it at all. I ended up at a store that I was grouped in because I think I spent like 3, maybe 4 months bouncing around at a time. And then I went to at one specific store. Now, I had been at this store before when I was supervisor, And then they did a remodel. I had already uh, transferred before they did the remodel, but they did the remodel, so I ended up back at that store. So it was a different store, different managers, different employees. I think there were like maybe three that were the same. So anyway, um, so I ended up back at that store, and that store manager was actually, he was friends with the store manager at the one store that I loved so much. And so he knew how I worked, and he was excited to have me there, thank God. And all the other managers at the stores that I went to, they were like, if you ever decide that you need a change, you can always come here, because that's just the way that I work. I work efficiently. I make sure things get done. If this employee's not going to do it, screw it, I'll do it myself. So I end up back at this store. He's trying to help me get to assistant manager. That's just what he's trying to do. Cool. Thanks. I'll take it. Well, it didn't last long. I found out that the verbally abusive manager at the other store had actually been fired, but it was funny how he had been fired. Apparently, the company, before they told him that he was fired, decided to send out a mass email to everyone asking for applications for store manager for that location. They forgot to take that location off the mass email, and he saw it. So he knew he was getting fired. His last day, he literally just handed his keys to a manager. Like, it wasn't even his last day, like he had been fired or anything like that. Like, he literally gave him his resignation, and the day that he decided was his last day, he handed his keys to one of his department managers and just took off. And that was it. So I found out about that. I thought it was so funny. I was like, I cannot believe they did that. Funny, but I can't believe they did that. Because in their way of doing that, it means he can quit. Because if he gets fired, they can pay unemployment if he files, because he got fired. But if he quits, he can't get unemployment, because he could have just as easily kept the job. Anyway, so there's a new store manager that's going to that store, but not yet. So now they want me to go over there and help them out as like acting store manager in a way. So I was going over there to help, but I was still at this other store. And then all of a sudden, in January of 2017, I was given the news that, okay, you're going to have to go back to this store. There's a new manager, so it's okay. Okay. I was hoping things would be better. I was actually hoping that it would have been the store manager that was there when I first started. But not so luck. So anyway. So I'm doing the exact same vacation schedule I've always had. I take vacation in February. I take vacation in April. I take vacation in July. And then in December, or, November, December, whatever corresponds with my husband's. So those are the 4 weeks that I take each year. And that's, as much vacation time as they get, because they feel like that the company feels that if managers get 1 week off each quarter, it's less time off they're going to request. Oh, I'm sick. So they think that giving a week off each quarter. Anyway, so I get in. I start talking to the new manager. She seems okay. The problem is, though, is that I had been there for like 4 years longer than she had. And she was new. The thing was, though, is that she had been a store manager at like another retail chain. And she had just been promoted from assistant manager to manager for that store. That store is not the same as any other location at all. You got the larger stores, and then you got this little tiny store. It's not the same. You can't run it like a large store. And as many times as I would tell them this, Most of the managers who came in was like, whatever, I'll do it how I want to do it. Okay, fine, you do it. 3 weeks in, they're going, okay, I'm having a hard time with this is, I told you, you can't run this store like a large store. It doesn't work that way. I had been to 12 locations at this point, and I was trying to help her. And when I say 12 locations, I'm talking about 12 locations, and they were all of different sizes. Now, not all 12 locations were 12 different sizes. It's just the fact is that within these 12 locations, I had been to different size stores. Some of them carry some of the larger locations carry more than some of the smaller locations. Now, when I say this was a small location, I'm talking about legitimately, it was focused on the copy and print center. That's it. I mean, we had aisles and stuff where you could buy certain supplies, but there was hardly anything actually in this store. And it could not be run like a large location. It just can't. It's impossible to do. But yet they're always trying to do it that way. So 3 weeks in, and she realizes, okay, I do need your help in running this store. And I'm like, of course you do. So, and I mean, I sound so arrogant right now about this whole thing. I really do. I sound completely arrogant. But the problem is, though, is that when I'm trying to help and they're not taking it, in my mind, I'm going, fine, just do it your way. I don't care. But then coming to me later and asking me to help them, I can help you. Fine. But don't give me your shit to do when it's your job to do it. Give me your job then. I legitimately had so much to do on my plate that I was more pissed about my pay than anything because I was doing the work that wasn't for my pay grade. And then when I would decide that, okay, you know what? If I'm not going to get paid to do this, then I'm not going to do it at all. And then I'd get yelled at because, I didn't do it. So every other location, I never had an issue taking my vacation. I was told that I couldn't take the week off of my anniversary because the store manager was going to take that week off. So I had to wait until the next week. Okay. Then I couldn't take the week off of my birthday because the store manager was going to take off that week. Okay. So when she told me that, I was like, okay, in July. I need this week off in July. And she was like, oh yeah, that's fine. I don't care. Cool. All right. Well, at this point, I didn't realize that week was going to be spent in physical therapy. Because in May, I ended up... Okay, let's back up. So I was no longer in the copy and print center. I am at this, I made it to management. I'm no longer the supervisor, but I still did a lot because of this store was basically, copy and print. And that was why I was given that management position at that store when I first got there in 2015. So, but I had been changed over. So now I was the operations manager. Okay. Which means I took care of the freight, deliveries, putting it all away, making sure that shipping was taken correctly. I sent back anything that needed to be sent back. I destroyed what needed to be destroyed. I took care of returns and everything else, right? So it's about the last week in May, and one of my two freight employees called in. Since he had called in, I was with one of the other employees, so I'm having to help put away the freight. I did the minimum opening manager duties, blah, 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 that needed to be done. I didn't get a whole lot done. That was the manager. So as I'm stacking this paper pallet, because sometimes the paper pallet is already stacked up, it just needs a few more. So I'm taking it off of one pallet and stacking that up there so that we can take that paper pallet back to the receiving area and, stock it for whenever needs to come out, right? Well, whenever I lift things up, I tend to bend backwards just a little bit and I'm lifting it up there. Well, yeah, no, I get a sharp pain in my lower back and now I can't lift anything. I can't bend over. I couldn't move. Literally everything was done from the rest of the day leaning over the counter. That's how that was done. I was leaning over the counter, my whole back hurt. It was awful. On my lunch break, I called the doctor, said I need an appointment. Luckily, I had the next day off, so I was like, can I get an appointment for tomorrow? So I go to the doctor. Doctor refers me to a spine doctor. Awesome. So now I'm going to a spine doctor. But I hold off calling the spine doctor after I got referred because I'm just that type of person. I got to make sure I make the appointment on a day that I have off, and I didn't know what my next week's schedule was yet. So my store manager knew I had the issue, knew that my back was hurting. She was allowing me to sit in the chair whenever I needed to. Most of my work was done leaning over the counter because whether I was sitting, standing, whatever, I had to be bent over because it hurt so bad. And there were certain days where I literally had to force myself to get up and go to work. I get what she ended up doing was she gave me a 2-week schedule so that I could make the appointment for one of the 4 days that I got off in those 2 weeks, because you get 2 days off a week. So I go ahead and make the appointment. I let them know which 4 days I have, and they give me the earliest appointment. They took x-rays, and they said, okay, by your x-rays, we're going to need you to get an MRI. What the hell does that mean? So I go to get the MRI. They find 3 herniated discs in my back. To top it off, I also have slight scoliosis, which I've always had, but then they find spinal stenosis. As if shit couldn't get worse, right? I was also told that it could be anywhere between 18 to 24 months before I could get all of my range of motion. Let me put it this way. I was told that I could not lift any more than 10 pounds. I couldn't lift anything up over my head. I wasn't allowed to actually bend, twist, or climb ladders, which, if anyone knows how to put away freight, every part of my job was on restriction. I let her know I've got restrictions. She says, okay. I explained to her that since I can't do the freight, I'm willing to switch with another manager so that they can come in and do the freight. But there was only one other manager that was actually able to do that. Because he had been there literally exactly the same amount of time as I had been. I think he started like 2 days before I did. He ended up doing the freight. I ended up going to night shift. No big deal. Well, here comes July. Now, of course, I did all this. I was told I needed physical therapy, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I was going to wait until July when I took my week of vacation in order to do my physical therapy appointments because I was going to need 2 per week. Okay, cool. So I made sure to schedule them early in the morning so I could still work my night shift if need be. And my first 2 appointments were during my week of vacation so I could kind of get an idea of exactly how this was going to go, and my physical therapist could get me a note for work. I can't lift more than 10 pounds. I can't squat, crouch, climb ladders, bend over, put anything up over my head. I mean, I still had all of the same, severe restrictions. Okay. So I had gone on vacation. I came back. I gave her all the information that I had from my physical therapist, let her know what was going on, told her that I made these appointments specifically in the morning so that I could still work that night, so it wasn't like I was needing those 2 days off every week. And she was like, oh, okay, good. Awesome. While I was actually on that vacation, I had talked to the store managers that were my favorite and had asked them if I was going to need to take a leave of absence or if I could still continue to work. And they were like, no. As long as the store manager is willing to work with your restrictions, you should be fine. Okay, awesome. because on those restrictions, I needed to sit down every 15 to 20 minutes. I did that for about 3 weeks. I sat down every 20 minutes if I needed it. They allowed me to have a chair behind the counter in case I needed to sit down, so I'm not sitting on the, out on the floor where there's customers walking around. So I'm sitting behind the counter, the copy center counter, which is in the center of the store. And I come into work one day and she tells me, she says, I didn't know if I wanted to call you and let you know, because she had found out at 8 o'clock that morning. I didn't have to be there until 2. She could have called me. She reported me to HR. HR told her I was considered as a liability. So this is according to her, because other store managers have said that that's not true. This is her way of saying, okay, we just don't want you here. So she had to have exaggerated my condition, my disability, in order to get me kicked out of work. So now I'm kicked out. I have to take a leave of absence. There's no getting around it. Okay, fine. I'm thinking 2 months, tops, and then I can go back to work. No, they still didn't want to work with my restrictions after 2 months. She told me, she says, no, you have to have 0 restrictions. I told her, I said, this could be 18 to 24 months before I could be off restrictions. And she goes, I'm sorry. Okay. Well, I'm still getting paid because they have this company that, when you do a leave of absence, they still pay you and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, fine. Of course, I'm not writing because I'm literally having to do these physical therapy things. I mean, this goes on. This is literally the publishing gap that I have between my books. I mean, it's awful. So we've got Hurricane Harvey, my sister-in-law, her 3 kids, and her husband all end up living in our house. In the same process, due to the fact that, I missed physical therapy for a week, I'm trying to go back to work. They're telling me no because I still have restrictions, regardless of the fact that I moved up to 15 pounds from 10, which now I'm moving up to 25 pounds. Being able to lift 25 pounds. I'm doing what I can. I'm still getting paid. Well, when 2018 starts, we're going, okay, we're done. Nope, we're going to sell our house. We're going to get out of here. My son was graduated from high school. We're like, okay, we're going to sell this house. We're going to get out of here. Because they're refusing to work with you, because HR keeps telling you, you have to have 0 restrictions to go back to work. They're basically telling me, you can't work because you're disabled. Yeah, I was literally told that because of my disability, because I had limitations from my doctor that said, I had restrictions. They wanted something that said 0 restrictions and I could go right back to doing my job. No, I cannot stand for longer than 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, fine. Fine, I'm done. I got, a whole nother family living in my house right now. We're attempting to fix up the house so that, we can sell it. We decided we wanted to do minimal. So we found 3 acres. Cool. My sister-in-law and her family moved back into their house. I get an email from HR that states that I was no longer to deal with the store manager. I had to go directly through them. I sent them all the paperwork that needed. They kept telling me until I got something that said 0 restrictions, I was banned from working. I could not go back until I had a letter stating that I had 0 restrictions. When in actuality, the store manager never had to say anything at all. According to the other 2 gentlemen who had been working for the company for at least 15 to 20 years. She'd been there for 3. And they were telling me that she never had to involve HR at any point in time. All she had to do was, all she had to do was just deal with my restrictions and allow me to continue to work. I could have gotten through and, basically gotten back to where I was. That's all she had to do. She just had to wait. I mean, it was 18 to 24 months up to. It didn't mean that it was going to be 18 to 24 months. I will tell you this much though, still cannot sit on hard surfaces. So when we go to restaurants and stuff like that, I have to gauge the chairs and figure out how long it's going to be before I have to get up. Like this chair alone right now, the reason why sometimes I sit on the couch is because of the fact that this chair, I'm sitting on a pillow and I have a pillow behind me because my tailbone, I don't know what it's the spinal stenosis. I know that much that causes a lot of pain that starts in my tailbone and then ends up going straight up my spine. And I say straight up my spine when in actuality my spine looks like this. I think it's funny now because I'm sitting there going, "Thanks, Dad." He already had surgery to fix his spine, but whatever. And then of course my poor son back here, he's got worse issues than I do, but I've got it worse than my dad. So it's just going to keep going down the line, and I feel sorry for his kids. I'm. We're hoping it skips a generation. I don't know. Anyway, so sometimes when you see me sitting on the couch, it's literally because I sat here one day, all day long for hours on end, and I couldn't take it anymore, and my entire back and tailbone and everything else is screaming at me. Or I slept wrong because, God forbid, I figure out the most comfortable position to sleep in. So I have to be very careful about the way that I move and do things. Um, so apparently my condition's getting a lot worse, so I haven't dealt with going back to work, but whatever, I don't care. So this is me now. So in other words, I'm doing this all on my own. I see my physical therapist like once a month. I have up to 24 visits, so I can see her twice a month for an entire year, but I see her once a month. Anytime I'm having one of those days, because like I can't run because the impact on my spine. Okay, we're gonna go through this. So we found 3 acres of land. We sold our house twice. Here we go. We're living in the RV. I'm driving every Tuesday to my parents' house now. That's 3 towns away. Now, of course, this is Texas, so some of these towns are literally population 406. Um, the town that we're going into is population 650. Last I looked, 650. There's also a small town just past that I think is less than that. It's like 230 or something like that. Like literally, these are towns where if you blink, you miss it. So 3 towns away, but 45 minutes. So the house sold. Cool. Driving over to my parents' house to do laundry on Tuesdays. I'll start this up again. So now I'm editing. Yay. So I paid attention to Family Affair 2018. I wanted to get it done. I wanted to get it published. I wanted to get it finished. But the problem was, though, is that because so much time had passed, I needed to redo the entire thing. So I went through and I re-edited, and I went back to the beta readers. And I gave it to the beta readers again. I apologized and I said, "Hey, look, I'm redoing it. I need you to take a look at these new edits I've done." So that got done. But then I kind of pushed it aside again. And it was mainly because we were still in the process of getting used to all of this. And I was still trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. So it got to the point to where what I was technically doing was I started planning. I started planning 2019. So this is with my beta readers. I'm planning 2019. I'm really wanting to get this one done, but I really need to figure something out. Planning my writing schedule for 2019, and I planned out to finish the Affair series, Fundamental Affair and Fruitful Affair. And I was trying to plan out a marketing strategy to sell more books. As you can see, this is my July marketing strategy was YouTube of 2019. So I got through and I did it. It wasn't until August of 2019 before it actually got published, because 2019 was I went back to seriously writing. And I wanted to really, really start this because I was still in my head. I was going to get a job, maybe, but then I decided that I can do this as my job since technically, right now, where we are living, how we are living, it's way cheaper than anything we'd ever done before. So, what do I need a job for now? Anyway, August 2019, Family Affair is published. September of 2019 was the debut, and technically was my first debut out there into the world, and with strangers, I guess, because Scary Dad's Haunted Halloween show was the 2019, and I was so excited. The back of the book does have a little bit of a spoiler to Forbidden Affair. So if you haven't read Forbidden Affair, I don't want to spoil it for you. And if you haven't seen the synopsis on the back of this book, I don't want to spoil anything. So I have it kind of condensed down right here, where I've taken certain things out that are on the back of the book that I may end up actually redoing and taking it out. Because this whole book needs to be reformatted anyway, because it's a little bit larger print and stuff like that, because I was still trying to figure out how to format on the Mac compared to the PC, because it's a little different. But I figured it out. Fundamental Affair fixed it. Fundamental Affair, Forbidden Affair, both look the same. This one just has a little bit bigger font, but I got it figured out. I may end up fixing it, but I don't know. But I've got it over here, so I'm going to technically read this. So I've got Family is Chosen. Mackenzie and Jasper are finally married and preparing for their honeymoon. Unfortunately, Mackenzie is being tormented. Again. The butcher was dead. She killed him. But someone new has taken over the victim pool. Photos of Mackenzie as a child before her mother abandoned her were being left at the new crime scenes with ominous messages pasted on the back. The Ansley Kirkland Center for Recovery and Memory of the Butcher's last victim was meant to be a safe space, but an uninvited visitor and a gruesome homicide had disrupted the quiescent haven. She assisted the police in the investigation, even inserting herself into a dangerous situation. Will she survive this time, or will the copycat finish what the butcher had started? So I eliminated some spoiler words, just in case. Because most readers who read Forbidden Affair are normally shocked who the person actually is in Forbidden Affair. I thought it was this guy. It turned out to be this guy. So I wanted to remove that because it is on the back of the book. But I am going to read the first page in chapter 4. Just to kind of get a little thing. So everyone was gathered in the reception area when I finally emerged from my office. Their conversation ceased when they noticed me. Hey, Jillian began, dragging out the words so long it was more for sympathy rather than a friendly greeting. How you doing? Look, I'm not sad, so don't treat me like I'm going to break down and cry any minute. I'm angry. Angry that my mother abandoned me at age 6, and angry that if that woman was my mother, she felt it was necessary to come back into my life after a traumatic experience, I said. Is there anything you want us to do? Charlotte asked. Yes, I need you to get in touch with our foster parents and find out if they know who my mother was. Her name is really all I need to know, I told her. So, if you've read Forbidden Affair, then you know that her foster parents are kind of dicks. They don't really care for her. Once you get to Fundamental Affair, you'll actually get to see all of that. So that's why I say Fundamental Affair can kind of be read first, or it can be read after Family Affair, but it has to be read before Fruitful Affair. Anyway, so that is it. Next week is Fundamental Affair, the new one. So next week is Fundamental Affair. Don't forget, all of my books are $10 on my website. There's a coupon code down below in the description. There's also a link to my website down below. Notebooks, notepads on my website are $2. These were formatted, printed, and cut all by me, and coil bound, because, you know, I worked in a print center. So all of this was done by me. $2 each, $10 each on the books. If you have anything, any kind of questions or anything like that, leave it in the, you know, comments below. I will try to answer any of your questions as possibly can. 2019, I wrote Fundamental Affair and Fruitful Affair. Were both written in 2019. Fundamental Affair, of course, was finished first, so I focused more on that one. Fruitful Affair right now is in the file edit stage, so I'm doing the file edits. This year, I did Killer Suburbia. That one's in the paper editing stage. If y'all want my editing, like, timeline and all that stuff, I can do a video on that too, because I do the paper edits, I do file edits, I do beta edits, I do editor edits, I do my own edits one more time. So I have like a whole process that I go through. But anyway, so that is Family Affair. And that's it for today. Next week is Fundamental Affair, and we'll talk about that. Okay, bye!